it's Hoshi-chan here with Anime on Location at Ohayocon 2016. And I'm here with Samantha Inoue-Harte.
Hello?
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm great. Yay! Okay, so how did you get started in your in the world of entertainment?
I started off as an animator. I wanted to be an animator for a long time, and I moved to Texas, and I got a Yellow Pages, one of those big tome books, and I flipped through it and I found an animation studio, and I called them for like 2 weeks straight, and I visited them every day for like about 2 weeks until finally I think I annoyed them to the point where they were like, she's not going away, she might as well stay. But then as far as voice acting is concerned, I have an annoying voice, and the producer, his name was Joel Sweeney. I was working with him and Sam Fleming on a animation for Mattel. I think it was like Barbie Princess Bride, and Joel Sweeney came over and he was like, "Wow, you have an annoying voice. You need to get into anime." And so yeah, that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, my mom used to always tell me, if you want a job, just annoy the employers and you'll get that job.
There's a point where it's like there's annoying, and then there's persistence. You kind of need to know where to draw the line and not go over it, because being persistent and confident is cool, but if you overstep that boundary and get into annoying, then you're not going to get that job.
They'll just probably call the police and get a restraining order or something, right?
Yeah, you don't want that.
Okay, so in your bio, it says that you're one of the few Americans who work on the Japanese side of the anime industry. So what does that mean to you, and is it hard to accomplish?
Well, it's definitely a learning experience. I began a little while ago being a producer for anime, and I began working with a couple of studios to produce anime, and there's just not very many Americans that can do that. It's like if say, if you were to walk over to an animation studio in Japan and be like, "Hey, I've got a story idea, would you be willing to animate it for me?" Most studios would sit there and say no. So it's interesting, but at the same time, it's like, because there's not very many of us here in the U.S. that work directly with the Japanese animation studios, it's kind of hard to find like somebody to connect with. It's like there's like about 4 other people that I can like call up on the phone, and say, it's like, "Oh my goodness, have you ever had this problem?" It's like I can't just go and say that with, ask that question with just anybody. It's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah.
Cool. So it also says that you had a chance to work on the Final Fantasy project. How was that?
Well, I got called by my director at the time. His name was Charlie Campbell, over at ADV Films Monster Island Studios, which was the Austin, Texas branch of ADV Films. And he called and he was like, "Hey, we've got a little girl character that we would love for you to be a voice for." And I was like, "Okay, sure." I go into the studio and I start watching what it is that we're recording for, and I realize this is Final Fantasy. This is Final Fantasy Unlimited. Oh my goodness. And I start to geek out. Hello. I start to geek out, and nobody in the studio knew anything about Final Fantasy. And I was like, "I've got this character. Is there a chocobo?" And the director was like, "Well, yeah, there's a chocobo." And I was like, "Can I be the chocobo?" And they were like, "No, you can't be the chocobo." And I was like, "Why not?" Because that's like that's an actual major role, and you already have a major role, so you can't be both. So I was like, "Let's get rid of the girl. I want to be the chocobo. Can I be the chocobo?" And so after like so much nagging, the director finally was like, "Okay, you can be the chocobo." And they kind of felt bad, because they were like, why does she want to be this bird character? And so I was like, are there like cacti? Can I be the cacti? And it's like, I see like a Moogle, and I'm like, can I be the Moogle? And they were like, no, you can't be the Moogle. But I did eventually get to be in Final Fantasy as all the cactuars, as all the chocobo except for one, and then got to be I think it was Chocobaba who had the chocobo, and the chocobo that she rode on was played by I think Lowell Bartholomew. But I got to play all the other chocobos, and it was just funny because I was willing to take a $3,000 pay cut just so that way I could play the chocobo.
Wow. Dedication right there. So you worked with Disney on a few projects. How was it working with them?
Well, I worked for an animation studio, and some of their clients were Disney. So I can't exactly sit there and say it's like, yes, I work directly with Disney. Well, no, not really. We were the studios that I used to work at as an animator. We were outsourced studios, so there would be like scenes that couldn't be finished for this or that project, and so our studio would get hired, and then all the parts and pieces of like the scenes would get dished out to all the animators. I did a lot of cleanup, and I did a lot of coloring on some stuff, but then on some of the other Disney stuff I got to do some rough animation, some cleanup animation. It was a lot of fun, but it was always daunting because you always had to be able to draw to a certain standard. And at one point, I always felt that I was too slow at drawing, which, I felt really self-conscious about that. So, but I had a lot of fun with it, though. I get to say, it's like, woo, got to work on this. So, yeah.
Well, that's always interesting. So, as an animator, how did you approach the project, such as Fresh Baked video games?
That was for Spike TV. That was interesting because the project for Fresh Baked video games, I don't know if you're a big fan of Rick and Morty. So the Justin Roiland was in charge of Fresh Baked video games. I believe he's the creator of Rick and Morty, right? He had put an ad with regards to needing some animation, and I answered that ad, and this was years before Rick and Morty. You have to understand. And so he hired our studio to do the sequences from Fresh Baked video games, and Justin would write the scripts, and he would send the scripts over to us. I'd sit there and look at the scripts, break them down into storyboards, and then go and do the animation from there. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but it's just really nice to know that it's like, wow, we got to work with one of the creators of Rick and Morty before he became. It's like, yeah. So it was a lot of fun, and there were some sequences from Fresh Baked video games, which to this day I'm actually really impressed by. We got to do, we did some 1-minute shorts, and we were able to get done with a single 1-minute short within 24 hours from start to finish. That's, within the animation world, that's pretty good. That's fast. So, but that was the very first opportunity where I actually asked the folks over at Spike TV if I could be an animation director, since that's essentially what I was doing. I was not just being an animator, and so that was my first chance at directing. So that was a lot of fun.
That's got to be pretty neat. So, in the anime industry has its fair shares of ups and downs, and we only get to see like the American side of it. So, with you being able to work firsthand with the Japanese industry with anime, how would you say that they keep like the content flowing?
Well, Wait, are we talking about how the lows like affected things, or can you please explain further? Sorry.
Like comparison to working like for here in America, we only get to see like certain aspect in the anime industry, and over in Japan, it has to be like a completely different thing. Like, how is it different?
Well, when I first started working with the Japanese, like say in 2008, I went over to Japan, and that very week I was working on a project that we were trying to produce. It didn't get made, but we were doing a lot of talks and negotiations with an animation studio, and that animation studio that very week was closing down their Shinjuku office and moving all of they had two offices, one in Nerima and one in Shinjuku. And they were actually in the process that week of closing down their Shinjuku office and sending everything over to the Nerima office. So, talk about a low. A lot of studios had to cut down. Same in America too. But we've talked with various studios. I tried working with Funimation for a short period of time, doing some original content with them for the purpose of creating content that would be appealing to both Western and Eastern audiences, but having either a simultaneous release or to have a U.S. release first, so that way we can combat against the bootlegging and the piracy that was going on with anime, that still goes on with anime. So right now, I mean, the plans that I'm working out with the Japanese now is we're trying to help make a bridge easier to cross over from the east to the west, and making more product that would be appealing to not just anime fans, but also to non-anime fans. So that way it would become more mainstream rather than just niche. Because if we can, if us and the Japanese can create content that is more accessible to the regular, audience member, then there would possibly be a little bit more protection, from piracy. And so that's kind of what we're trying to do right now. It's tough, though.
Okay, so in your time as a voice actor, which has been quite long, what was your...
old!
You look really good, though.
It's the Asian blood. We're like candles, It's like Asians, we like sit there, we never age until one day you hit 65 years old, somebody lights the candle and we melt.
It's like a slow burn.
I know, right?
So what was your biggest challenge, and how is it now compared to when you first started?
Well, when I first started, not very many people were doing anime voice acting. It was still really new, and it wasn't in its infancy, but it was still, there were advertisements in, newspapers, for, hey, you want to be a voice actor? Come and audition on such and such a day. It's like now, there's such a demand for it's like people are out of the woodwork, coming out of the woodwork. They want to be voice actors. Back when I started, I wasn't trying to be a voice actor. I just kind of got dragged into it by luck. And because a producer named Joel Sweeney was like, you have an annoying voice. Get into anime. So it's a lot harder now to get into anime. When I got into anime, I didn't know anything about voice acting. I'd done some acting, but I'd never been trained as an actor. Now, when you go into voice acting, you have to know how to do voice acting before you become a voice actor. And the competition has gotten really hard, so I get a lot more no's on parts than before. It's like before, half the time I didn't even audition for characters. A director would just call and just say, hey, we got a part for you. Come on in. Can you be in 10 minutes? It's like, okay, sure. So I'd go and record. Now it's like you have to do a lot of, jumping through hoops. So it's the competition. It's tough, but yeah.
The struggle is real. So, is there any upcoming projects that your fans should know about?
Oh man, there's a lot that I want to talk about. Gosh darn NDAs. Well, I'm currently producing an animated feature called Tail Chaser Song, which is based on a Tad Williams fantasy novel. I don't know if any of you guys are fans of the Warriors Cats novels. Are you? Oh, okay. Well, if you like cats, you'd like. Oh, the internet loves cats. Pretty much, I'm producing a Tail Chaser song along with my partner Paul Alvarado Dykstra, and we have a script. It's looking really good. I mean, it's starting to read like a movie, and written by some very talented people, and we have animation studios that we've been talking with, and that's coming along pretty well. I mean, it's going to be the movie is going to be kind of like Lord of the Rings but with cats. So it's a fantasy world with cats. There's a couple other projects that we're working on, but unfortunately I can't really talk about those right now, unless we signed some NDAs and stuff. But I'm working with a Japanese anime studio. Me and a couple people have been concocting some really cool story ideas and coming up with new anime, and the Japanese animation studio has been like, yes, this is a great idea. So I'm doing a lot of writing now. So, but yeah, I'm sorry I can't talk too much about it. I feel bad.
You had me at cats, so it's okay.
Yay, cats!
Cats for the win. So, is there any way your fans could keep up with you online?
I love Facebook. I'm on Facebook. You can find me there. I don't have any sort of fan website or anything like that. So if you do look me up on the internet or on Facebook, I'm the only one there. And it is, fans can write to me there, and I try and answer as quickly as I can. I used to have actually I still kind of do have a listserv. I don't really visit it very often, but I get a lot of emails. Fans just look me up and they can email me, and I try and answer as many of them as I can.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you for having me.
No problem.
It was a lot of fun.
So you heard it here at Anime on Location. Peace.